Hey guys, tonight we are going to sink into a story that I can almost guarantee you won't want echoing in your head when the lights are off. Picture it. Silence so deep it presses on your skull. A taste of iron in the air that shouldn't be there. And water that pulls you down whether you want it or not. And here's the kicker. You probably won't survive this one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and the local time, just in case I need to know where to find you later. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The night you begin with isn't your own, it's borrowed, pulled out from under someone else's shoes. You wake in it the way a diver wakes inside a cold mask. Breath fogging up glass, lungs constricted, eyes already searching for the surface, except there's no surface tonight. Just a phone call that slices through your half-sleep like a blade. Midnight bleeds into your ears, a clipped voice giving you no context, no courtesy. Just you're needed. Now, you don't argue, because what's the point? You've lived enough of these summons to know hesitation only makes the ride worse. You slip into clothes that still smell of chlorine and metal, every fiber stiff with salt. Outside, the road is a tunnel of its own, blacked-out SUVs, lined up like silent soldiers waiting to swallow you whole. You don't know their names. That's the first thing that makes your gut twist. Normally, when you're called in, it's by people you've worked with, colleagues you can nod to, curse with, maybe even trust. But tonight, their faces are gray, blurred, like masks pulled tight over bone. They don't offer small talk, not even a hint of what's waiting. Just curt nods and get in. The ride is long. Too long. West Virginia woods press against the windows like they're trying to eavesdrop. The deeper the convoy drives, the more your phone buzzes like it wants to protest. No service, no bars, just a screen that turns into a mirror. You catch your reflection. Eyes a little too wide, mouth a little too tight. The part of you that jokes about danger, the one that says, "Oh, this will make a hell of a story someday," is already fading. When the convoy finally jerks to a stop, it's like surfacing too fast. Ears popping, stomach rolling, you step out onto dirt that feels wrong, damp, but brittle, as if the earth has been holding its breath. Government seals glare from every direction. NOAA, EPA, USACE, and others with names you can't place. Some vans don't even pretend. They're just blank, white, anonymous. One bears a catering logo, laughably fake. You'd laugh if your throat weren't so dry. The scene is chaos wrapped in silence. People bark into phones. Papers flap like desperate birds in hands that tremble with rage or exhaustion. A man red as raw meat screams at a woman who only smiles back. None of them look at you as a person. You're another tool, another mask to strap on and toss into the dark. You keep waiting for someone to explain. They don't. Instead, They shove a clipboard into your hands. Your signature demanded before you've even skimmed the words. You ask what this is about, and the answer slips out. One word that should feel small, but doesn't. Earthquake. Not big, not headline making, just a local shiver in the earth's crust. But it tore something open. A wound in the land, a lake that isn't a lake anymore. You follow them to the clearing, and that's when you see it. Imagine a body drained of blood, pale and sunken, left for crows. That's the lake, its water gone, its bed cracked and twitching with dying fish, while gulls dive and tear. The smell is enough to claw at the inside of your mask, even though you haven't put one on yet. Hazmat suits waddle after the birds, slipping and sliding, their shouts breaking against the air like glass. But your eyes don't stay on the fish, or the gulls, or the mud. They catch on the hole. 6 by 4 feet, just enough for a coffin to slip into. The last remnant of water in the lake has vanished down into that throat, and the earth around it is dressed like a crime scene. Red flags, laptops, wires, screens glowing in the dawn. Scientists poke and prod, but their eyes flick to the hole too often, like they're afraid of being caught staring. You're told this is where you're going. Down there. Blind dive. No plan, no data, just we need samples, and we need them before dawn dies. You want to say no, but then she appears, the woman in the pantsuit. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Her words cut deeper than any scream. 12 hours, not a second longer. Private property. Do it, or I'll burn your life to the ground. That's how you know this isn't about an earthquake. Not really. This isn't about rescue or research or safety. This is about ownership, about secrets buried long enough that the earth itself tried to hold them down. And now, you, lucky you, get to be the first body fed into the throat of that secret. The sun lifts weakly over the horizon, throwing a dull glow across the mud. You sit on the log beside your fellow divers, gear pressing cold against your ribs, hands trembling as they check hoses, seals, tanks. The air smells of diesel and fish rot. The lake's empty eye stares back at you, daring you to blink first, and as you're pulled toward it, the thought lodges in your head like a stone. Once you go down, there might not be a way back up. You keep telling yourself that it's just another job, just a dive, just a hole in the ground that happened to gulp down a lake. That's what you repeat, like a mantra, while voices hiss around you in the misty pre-dawn air. But every time you settle into the thought, you hear something that cuts it apart. Not the gulls anymore. Those winged scavengers have mostly scattered, screeching in the distance. Not the hum of the generators either, their oily breath already coating your tongue. No, it's the people, the whispers. They slither between shouts, under the bark of orders. When someone thinks no one's listening, the truth leaks out in broken fragments. Geological event, Karoo contamination, not stable, private, 12 hours, words like brittle bones, snapping under weight. You try to corner someone, demand clarity. But every time, the same blank expression greets you. I don't know. Not my department. Ask her. Just do your prep. And then there's the way they look at the hole, like it's not just a gap in the earth, like it's a mouth. Garrett nudges you with his elbow, forcing a laugh that sounds more like a cough. Remember when we thought shipwrecks were the worst thing we'd find? I'd take rusted steel over this any day. Nora doesn't laugh. She's already half in her wetsuit, face pale under the halogen glare. Her hands move fast, too fast, strapping gauges, testing seals, checking valves. She doesn't meet your eyes. Not once. You know that look. The one where fear has already settled in, and the only way forward is speed, because if she slows down, she'll think about it. And thinking is fatal. The crowd around you swells like an anxious tide. EPA jackets brush against NOAA clipboards, acronyms colliding like waves in a storm. Someone is red-faced and sweating through his shirt, barking about seismic readings. Another keeps repeating the same thing. Containment, containment, containment. You wonder who he's trying to convince. And then there's the pantsuit woman. She moves through the mob like a shark cutting through minnows. No clipboard, no equipment, no mud on her shoes. Just authority sharpened to a point. When she passes, voices drop. Even the gulls seem to hush. You ask her directly, because what else is left? What's down there? Her eyes snap to you. For the first time, you feel noticed, truly noticed, and you hate it. Her smile is wrong. Too measured, too calm. That, she says, nodding toward the hole, is your opportunity. The word lingers. Opportunity, like you're supposed to be grateful for it. Like you should thank her for the privilege of vanishing into that throat of stone and mud. Your gut twists, but you play along. That's survival too. The air grows colder as dawn slinks upward. The hole seems to drink in the light, greedily swallowing every glimmer. You feel a shift in the soil under your boots, just a whisper of movement, but enough to make the hairs on your arms rise. Somewhere in the crowd, a man mutters about how the Karoo Ice Age might have locked ecosystems underground, sealed for millions of years. Imagine it, he says, almost reverent. Life that's never seen the sun. Someone else snorts and tells him to shut up, reminding him historians still debate whether those extinction layers really concealed anything worth finding. But the seed is planted. Life that's never seen the sun. And suddenly, the hole doesn't just look like a mouth. It looks like an eye. One that's been closed for eons, pried open by the quake, and now forced to stare. You try not to think about what might stare back. The whispers keep weaving themselves around you, tangling in your ears. Some are technical, full of jargon that slips past like eels. Others are too blunt, too human, not safe, not natural, not worth it. And yet, every whisper is muffled under the louder command. Go down. Get samples. Don't ask questions. You're herded closer, step by step. The circle tightens around you until you realize you're not part of the team. You're the offering, the scapegoat, the one who goes where no one else dares, while the rest watch and measure from safety. Your gear feels heavier than usual, straps digging into your shoulders like shackles. The wetsuit clings like a second skin you can't peel off. The tank hums against your back, steady and metallic, reminding you how fragile air really is. Beside you, Garrett forces a grin. "At least we'll be famous," he says, but his voice cracks halfway through. Nora doesn't even pretend. She tightens her mask and whispers something under her breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. The crowd parts as the sun finally clears the trees. Pale light spills across the mud, but it doesn't warm you. It only makes the shadows sharper. You step forward, each boot sinking deeper into the wet earth. The hole waits, dark, patient, and in the silence before you reach it, you swear you hear it whisper back. Not words, not human sounds, but a low, steady hum, like the earth itself is exhaling, daring you to inhale. You don't want to, but you will, because by now, it's clear you were never meant to walk away from this valley. The closer you get, the more the hole looks alive. Not alive in the warm, beating heart way, alive like a wound, raw and pulsing. A place where something essential has been torn open. It should just be geology. A sinkhole, a collapsed cave, whatever tidy label they'll slap on it for the papers later. But standing at its edge, you can't shake the feeling that this is not an absence of earth, but a presence of something else, something waiting. The mud sucks at your boots, refusing to let go. Gulls circle above, their cries jagged enough to slice through the din of generators. They swoop down again and again, beaks tearing into fish left stranded on the cracked bed of what used to be the lake. Hundreds of them flap and scream as though trying to warn you away. And then the smell hits God, the smell. You thought you were ready, but this is worse than anything you've faced on rescue dives. It's rot mixed with iron, algae turned sour in the sun, diesel fumes riding on the breeze. You taste it as much as smell it, a film that coats your tongue and clings to your teeth. The scientists don't notice, or maybe they've decided not to. They shuffle around with laptops balanced on folding tables, muttering about measurements and samples. The cords of their machines snake into the mud, like they're trying to feed the hole with electricity. One hazmat-suited figure tries to chase off the gulls with clumsy swings of a clipboard, but he only succeeds in slipping, landing face first in the muck. No one helps him. No one laughs. Everyone's too focused on the hole. You can't look away either. The surface shimmers oddly water, yes, but too still, too dark, like a mirror that refuses to reflect you. The woman in the pantsuit returns, her heels miraculously free of mud. She gestures at the water with a flick of her wrist, as if presenting a gift. "This," she says, "is your entry point." Garrett's voice cracks. Blind dive. No sonar, no currents mapped, nothing. Her expression hardens. You have your orders. Something inside you snaps at her words. But it doesn't matter. Orders are all that exist here. Orders and the 12-hour deadline ticking louder than your pulse. You remember your training. Every instructor who ever warned against cave dives. Never go in blind. Never trust an uncharted current. Never forget you're always one wrong breath from never surfacing again. And now, those rules dissolve under the weight of her command. You crouch at the edge, dipping a hand into the water. It's colder than it should be. Not refreshing, not natural cold like metal, like the airless chill of a cellar sealed too long. You jerk your hand back, but the sensation lingers, an icy print pressed into your skin. Nora kneels beside you, her voice low. Doesn't feel right. She's right. None of this feels right, but the clock is ticking, and the circle of officials, scientists, and faceless onlookers tightens around you. A noose of eyes and silence. You gear up slowly, methodically, because rushing would mean panic. Straps tightened, mask sealed, tank tested. Garrett mutters a checklist under his breath, more for comfort than necessity. Nora hums something tuneless, a sound you recognize from long nights on other dives, her way of keeping fear at bay. The equipment feels heavier than usual. The tank presses like a tombstone against your back. The mask constricts, each inhale louder than it should be, reminding you just how thin the line is between breath and suffocation. When you rise, the circle steps back as one, like priests retreating after laying a sacrifice on the altar. You can feel their eyes on you, hungry, expectant, already mourning. One technician leans close as he adjusts your tank. His smile is too wide, too bright, stretched thin by nerves. Exciting, isn't it? He whispers. First eyes to see what no one else has ever seen. You stare at him. That's not always a good thing, he chuckles, but it dies quickly, like he's suddenly remembered where you're going. The pantsuit woman's voice cuts through the tension. Samples of everything, bring them up. Everything in you wants to resist, but you know better. Resistance isn't bravery here, it's suicide. Not from the hole, but from the people watching. So you step forward. One boot, then the other, sinking into the mud at the lip of the wound. The water ripples faintly as if sensing you. You adjust your mask, breathe once, twice, and let gravity tip you in. The surface closes over your head, and the world above vanishes. At first, it's just murk. Reeds tangling against your suit, mud clouding in heavy swirls. Your mask light cuts a weak path through it all, but it's like trying to see through smoke. The water presses colder with every foot, the pressure gnawing at your ears. Your thoughts scatter, flashing to historical warnings you'd once read. In 1941, divers exploring Norway's Plura cave described how the walls seemed to shift with each breath, as though alive. One of them never came back. Historians still debate whether he panicked, ran out of air, or something else caught him in the dark. That story rattles around in your skull now, heavier than the tank strapped to your back. The descent feels endless. Your light glances off crystals in the rock, thin, sharp, shimmering like salt. They look fragile, but they cut at your gloves when you brush too close. Every scrape echoes in your ears, too loud, like someone dragging nails down a chalkboard from the inside of your head. Garrett's voice crackles faintly in your comms. Tunnel ahead. You pivot, scanning. 3 openings gape before you, each darker than the last. They look less like paths and more like jaws, waiting for something to swim inside. Nora signals for caution, but the voices from above hiss through the comms. Go deeper. Don't waste time. You swallow hard, feeling your throat tight against the regulator. One wrong choice, and you'll never see the surface again. Still, you kick forward, because you have no choice. Because the lake has vanished, but you're about to discover where it went. And the truth is, you might wish it had stayed gone. The water clamps down on you like a fist. Every inch you descend is colder, heavier, hungrier. The regulator hisses steady against your teeth, but you can't stop imagining how thin that line of air really is. Just a stream of bubbles standing between you and a suffocating grave. The mud hangs thick in the water, refusing to clear. Each kick of your fins stirs another storm of silt until it feels like you're falling through fog instead of swimming. Your light beam bends and scatters, slicing only a few feet ahead. Beyond that, nothing. The kind of blackness that eats light whole. Your tether hums faintly against your belt, your only connection to the world above. Even that feels fragile. One snag, one collapse, and you'd be cut loose like bait. Garrett drifts to your left, methodical, his camera light flashing briefly as he pans the walls. Nora is a shape on your right, her silhouette sharp against the murk. You're close enough to touch, but even here, even now, you feel alone. You force yourself to breathe slow, deep. In, out, because panic is faster than pressure. And once it starts, it will drown you before the water ever does. The tunnel narrows, and you angle sideways, scraping your shoulder against jagged stone. A flicker of pain bursts through your wetsuit, and you know the rock has torn a thin cut along your arm. Nothing serious. Yet the water around it feels alive, lapping against the wound like it knows you're bleeding. The voices in your comms rise and fall, distorted by the rock overhead. Words fracture into static. Samples deeper watch. The signal isn't dying yet, but it's gasping. Nora signals with her torch 3 short flicks. Slow down. You nod, adjusting your kick. Garrett responds by pointing to a pale streak along the wall. It glimmers strangely, a translucent film stretched across cracks in the rock. He scrapes at it with his chisel, filling a sample bag with the gooey substance. It looks harmless. It doesn't feel harmless. It clings to his glove like it wants to stay. You turn away, focusing on your own task, but your light lands on something else, a vein of quartz running jagged through the wall, catching the beam in a shimmer that looks, for a heartbeat, like eyes staring back. You reach out, chip off a fragment, slide it into the bag clipped to your chest. You tell yourself it's just mineral, just rock. But that doesn't stop your skin from crawling. The tunnel opens into a chamber barely the size of a bedroom. The ceiling presses low, forcing you to crouch as you hover above the floor. Garrett steadies himself, pulling his tether line taut. Nora tests her regulator, bubbles fizzing past her mask. For a moment, there is quiet, almost peace. Then the rumble starts. It doesn't sound like geology. It doesn't sound like stone. It sounds alive, like a throat clearing deep in the dark. A diesel engine coughing to life where no machine should exist. The vibrations roll through your bones, rattling your teeth, pressing against your chest until your lungs ache. You look at Garrett. His eyes are wide behind the mask, but he gives the signal. Steady. Nora doesn't move at all, frozen like prey waiting to see if the predator has noticed her. The comms crackle again, but the words are lost under the rumble. Just noise, broken syllables, static. Resurface in 10, you manage to signal. Garrett nods. Nora hesitates, then flashes agreement. You turn toward the tunnel mouth, but something shifts. Not just the sound this time, the stone itself. A chunk of wall sloughs off, tumbling past your shoulder, and for an instant, the tunnel ahead collapses in your imagination, trapping you forever. You've read the warnings. The cave divers who vanished without a trace, their lines snapped, their bodies never recovered. Some say they panicked. Others whisper about currents pulling them into spaces too small for bones to pass. Historians still debate the disappearance of the blue hole divers in the 1970s, whether the sea swallowed them or something in the dark did. Those debates echo in your skull now, heavy as the water pressing in. Nora signals again, urgent, sharp, retreat. Garrett is already moving, tugging his line, bubbles spilling from his regulator in a frantic rhythm. You follow. Slowly at first, then faster as the rumble grows. The walls shudder, flakes of quartz raining down like glass shards. And then silence, sudden, suffocating. For a heartbeat, it's as though the earth is holding its breath. You hover, every nerve screaming. Garrett's light flicks back and forth. Nora grips the wall with white knuckles. The silence stretches too long, and in it, you realize something terrifying. You're not afraid of the rumble. You're afraid of what comes after, because silence means it's listening. You wait in that silence longer than you should, lungs tight, every second dragging like a weight tied to your chest. It feels like if you move first, you'll trigger something, like a rabbit twitching before the hawk dives. But your air is finite, and fear doesn't pause the clock. So you signal. Forward, carefully. Garrett takes point, Nora behind him, you bringing up the rear. Your lights cut weak cones into the murk, beams bouncing off rough quartz and streaks of mineral deposits that sparkle like frost. The shimmering almost comforts you, like stars in a cave sky, until you realize they glimmer even when you're not pointing light directly at them. Reflections without a source. You tell yourself it's just your eyes, strained from the dark, but you keep glancing back, waiting for the glimmer to shift into something watching. The tunnel slopes downward, and the water grows colder. Your suit should insulate you, but but the chill bites through anyway, worming into your joints, clinging to your bones. Each kick feels slower, heavier. The deeper you go, the more the world above feels like a story you once heard, something hazy, unreliable, maybe even false. Static rasps in your comms. A voice from the surface, fragmented, broken, sample status, seismic. You key your mic. Copy, continuing descent. The response is swallowed. Nothing but hissing air. You glance at Garrett. He shakes his head, taps his ear. The signal's failing. You all knew it would. But knowing doesn't make the silence less terrifying. Nora scribbles numbers on her slate, clips it to her chest. Depth, 40 FT, time, 12 mins. She taps it twice for emphasis. She's meticulous, the kind of diver who marks every variable, every number, even when panic gnaws at her. It should comfort you. Instead, it makes you more aware of how much there is to lose track of. The tunnel widens suddenly, opening into a cavern that dwarfs you. Your lights barely touch the walls, shadows stretching into infinity. The water is clearer here, less silted, as though untouched for centuries. For a moment, awe replaces fear. You are truly among the first humans to ever see this space. And then awe curdles into dread. The cavern doesn't feel empty, not full either, just aware. The walls carry the faintest echo of your exhalations. Each bubble you release climbs toward the ceiling and pops in muffled bursts. But the sound bounces back wrong. Not crisp, not natural, muted. Like something soft is absorbing it. You kick closer to the wall, light sweeping over its jagged surface. That's when you see it. Not rock, not mineral. Something slick, translucent, embedded in the cracks. It quivers faintly as the current brushes it, almost like jellyfish flesh stretched flat. Garrett reaches for it, chiseling a sample loose. It peels away reluctantly, stringing like mucus, clinging to his glove before he stuffs it into a bag. Your stomach twists. Nora doesn't move closer. She just shakes her head, bubbles streaming from her regulator. Her body language screams the same thing pounding in your mind. Don't touch it. But it's already done. You push on, your tether line scraping faintly along stone. Every scrape echoes, bouncing in odd rhythms, until it sounds less like rope dragging and more like footsteps pacing behind you. You keep glancing over your shoulder, but there's only black water. Your mind drifts to an odd fact you once read. During the Black Death, divers were sometimes hired to dump plague corpses into wells and cisterns. Fearing contamination of water, legends grew of entire towns poisoned by tainted springs, cursed forever. Historians still debate whether those legends were superstition or truth, but the idea sticks with you now, because here you are, prying at an untouched spring that maybe should have stayed sealed. Garrett signals again, pointing his light upward. The ceiling shimmers with a fine dusting of crystalline growth, almost beautiful. Then, with a sharp movement, a fragment cracks free, spiraling down like shattered glass. When it strikes the cavern floor, the sound doesn't ring. It's swallowed. The water around your legs stirs, just faintly, but enough to remind you currents mean movement. And movement means something else is here. You flash Nora a signal, regroup. She flicks her light in acknowledgement, pulling closer. Garrett lingers too long, chiseling another fragment from the wall, until you tug his line sharply. He jerks back, annoyed, but follows. The three of you hover, a tight cluster in the center of the cavern, your lights painting a triangle of faint glow. The darkness presses against the edges, alive, waiting. And then the rumble returns. It's deeper now, louder. The cavern itself shakes, flecks of mineral dust raining down like snow. The jelly-like patches in the walls tremble, quivering in time with the vibration. Nora's eyes widen. She signals urgently, surface, now. But before you can respond, something cracks behind you. A sharp splintering sound, like stone giving way. You spin, light slicing the water, just in time to see part of the wall buckle. A fissure splits open, black water rushing from it with sudden force, carrying silt and shards of crystal in a torrent. The current shoves you sideways, tether lines straining against your belt. Garrett slams into the wall, his regulator hissing as bubbles explode from his mask. Nora grips the rock, kicking desperately against the flow. You fight it too, arms straining, lungs burning as your breaths turn shallow. The current feels less like water and more like something exhaling, something forcing you deeper into its lungs. You cling to the wall, nails scraping stone through your gloves. Your mask light wavers, and for a split second, you see it, a shadow deeper than shadow, pressed against the far side of the cavern. Long, spindly, waiting. And then the fissure collapses again, cutting off the current as suddenly as it began. Silence slams back into place, deafening, suffocating, your left gasping, tether trembling, ears ringing with the echoes of something that was never stone at all. It begins with a sound you never forget. Not the low groan of shifting stone, not the faint tremor of settling earth, no. This is sharper, violent, a crack that splits the water like lightning, shuddering through your bones. One heartbeat you're steady, clinging to the wall, the next you're weightless, ripped loose by a surge of force too strong to resist. The cavern collapses, your tether snaps taut, jerking your waist, biting into your hip. The line shudders once, then severs, the recoil knocking you into darkness. Silt clouds billow around you in violent swirls, turning your light into useless haze. Your body pinwheels, shoulders slamming into rock, knee cracking against jagged quartz. Pain flares sharp and bright, almost comforting in its clarity, proof you're still alive. You try to orient, but there's no up, no down, just pressure on all sides, currents tugging like unseen hands. Nora's voice blares through comms, high-pitched, distorted. Line cut collapse, then static. Silence. Garrett flickers into view for half a second, his mask light slicing a thin blade through the chaos. You see his arm reach, his mouth moving behind the regulator. But then he's gone, swallowed by silt and stone. The water itself feels angry now, thrashing in surges that toss you like driftwood. You grab for the wall, fingers scraping across stone until one finds purchase in a crack. You cling, chest heaving, regulator rasping like a panicked heartbeat. Then the ceiling comes down. Chunks of granite shear off, crashing into the cavern floor with bone-rattling thuds. One strikes your tank, jolting you forward. Another clips your leg, white-hot pain exploding down your shin. You scream into the regulator, the sound lost in bubbles. And through it all, the rumble grows. Not stone this time, not collapse. Something else deeper, rhythmic, like a living thing stirring in its sleep. You think of Krakatoa, the 1883 eruption that shook the world so violently its sound was heard 3,000 miles away. Sailors described the noise as the earth splitting apart. Historians still debate whether the stories were exaggerated, but down here, with rock shattering around you, you believe every word. The sound feels that colossal, that final. A violent surge tears your grip from the wall. You're sucked down into a tunnel you never saw before, dragged headfirst into blackness. Your mask bangs against stone, dislodging, water seeping in. You spit violently, trying to clear it, but cold liquid pools at the edge of your mouth. Something slams into your shoulder, Garrett. His eyes are wide, blood threading from a cut above his brow. He grabs your arm, hand signal flashing. Exhale, exhale. You force the air out, bubbles rushing past your face. He twists your mask, reseats it, jams the regulator back against your teeth. Air floods your lungs again, raw and metallic, blessed and terrible. The tunnel spins you both end over end, walls scraping, bruises stacking in rapid succession. Garrett tethers himself to you with a length of torn hose, gripping your wrist tight. You feel like two insects swept down a storm drain, then sudden stillness. The current drops, depositing you into a cavern so dark and vast it feels like you've fallen into space. You hang suspended, lungs burning, ears roaring. Your mask light flickers, weak, but enough to catch outlines, walls curving in impossible arcs, water stretching endless. You try to kick upward, desperate for surface, but Garrett tugs you back, shaking his head. He points upward. You look. The ceiling is there. Solid. No opening. Your stomach drops. It takes you a moment to understand you're in an airless dome. A chamber sealed tight, hundreds of feet down. The only way out is back through the chaos you just escaped. Garrett steadies you with a hand on your cheek, signaling. Calm. Conserve. You nod, though your chest screams to hyperventilate. Shapes drift through your light. Not fish, not debris, something else. At first they seem like tricks of silt, shimmers, moving too smoothly against the water. Then one drifts close enough to catch your beam. They're fish, but wrong. 4 inches long, eyeless. Their faces nothing but smooth flesh capped by a beak sharp. Chitinous, snapping as they dart past. Azure blue bodies flash in the glow, dozens of them swirling like a living cloud. You flinch as one brushes your glove, the scrape of its beak sharp enough to make your stomach clench. Garrett doesn't try to touch them. Neither do you. Instinct screams these creatures don't belong, that they've been sealed in this place for longer than history remembers. The school whirls past, vanishing into another tunnel. Garrett tightens his grip on your hand, signals upward again, hope that maybe the fish know a way out. You kick together, slow and steady, lungs aching. Every flick of your fins feels like rebellion against the crushing silence. The ceiling looms closer, then closer still, until your hand brushes it. Solid rock. No cracks, no opening. You press against it anyway, pounding with your fist. The sound is muffled, devoured by the stone. Panic surges, bubbling into your throat. Garrett digs into his belt, chiseling at the ceiling. Tiny fragments rain down, but the rock holds. Hopelessness weighs heavier than the water. But then something shifts. Not in the stone, in the current. A faint pull, barely there, drifting sideways. Garrett scrapes more fragments loose, watching them drift left, carried by the unseen flow. He signals, this way. You follow, clawing forward, squeezing into a crevice so narrow you have to exhale to fit. The stone presses against your chest, ribs aching, wetsuit scraping. For a moment you think you'll stick, that you'll die wedged in stone. Then you burst through into air. A pocket, small, stale, but air. You rip the regulator from your mouth, gasping, coughing, lungs flooding with foul sweetness. Garrett follows, collapsing beside you, both of you panting like animals. The ceiling drips. The walls gleam slick. The air tastes sugary, wrong, like fermenting fruit. But it's breathable. For now, you lean against the stone, every muscle quivering, mask dangling from your hand. Garrett laughs once, ragged and sharp, then cuts himself off. His voice cracks, hoarse. We're not supposed to be here. No, you're not. And the hole knows it. The pocket isn't safety. It's just delay. The air is thin, cloying, syrup sweet like rotting fruit left too long in the sun. Each breath fills your lungs, but it doesn't satisfy. It feels like you're inhaling memory instead of oxygen. Something stale that belonged to another time. Garrett wheezes beside you, rubbing at the gash above his brow. Blood dribbles into his mask, smearing across the plastic like paint. He laughs once, a hollow sound, then stops, as though the echo itself is dangerous. You want to stay in this small cavity forever, to believe you found a sanctuary, a reprieve from the crushing dark. But your body knows better. Your chest still heaves. Your skin still shivers. Your muscles still burn with exhaustion. You can't linger. Not here. Not in this air that tastes wrong. You put the regulator back between your teeth, test the hiss of oxygen. It's weak. Too weak. Garrett checks his tank, frowns. Between the two of you, maybe an hour of air left if you ration. Less if panic wins. And panic wants to win. It gnaws at the back of your skull. whispering about tunnels collapsing behind you, currents shifting against you, stone pressing in until ribs crack. You shake your head, try to smother the thoughts. But fear is louder than oxygen. Garrett grips your wrist, his eyes sharp despite the blood clouding his vision. His hand signal is simple. Keep moving. So you do. You both slip back into the water, regulators hissing, fins brushing against jagged rock. The tunnel narrows again. Walls so close you scrape along them with every stroke. It feels less like swimming and more like being swallowed alive. The light from your mask flickers dim, sputtering. It casts shadows that jitter with every movement, making the walls seem to pulse and breathe. And then you feel it. Not sight, not sound pressure, something gliding in the water beyond your beam, stirring currents that brush against your legs. You freeze, heart hammering, eyes straining into the black. Garrett stops too, his hand tightening on yours. Then the shimmer comes. At first you think it's crystals again, quartz catching stray beams. But it moves. Dozens of tiny bodies flashing azure blue, darting past you in a whirlpool of motion. The eyeless fish, the same swarm you glimpsed before, only now you see them clearly. Their skin gleams slick, too smooth, as though carved from glass. Their mouths gape, revealing sharp beaks that snap and grind as they dart around you. They avoid your lights, but not entirely. Some brush too close, scraping against your wetsuit with a sound like fingernails on metal. One bumps your glove, and the beak nips. Not hard enough to cut, but enough to make you jerk back. Garrett yanks you away, shaking his head violently. The swarm surges upward, slipping into a fissure in the ceiling. For a moment, the tunnel is clear again, silence settling heavy. You want to follow the fish. They came from somewhere. They must know a way out. But the thought chills you even more, because whatever evolved down here without eyes, without light, has had countless centuries to adapt. And not everything that adapts is harmless. Your chest aches. You force yourself to slow your breathing. Count the rhythm. One inhale, one exhale, steady, steady. Every bubble you release feels like a breadcrumb left in a forest of stone, but the bubbles rise against rock, tracing the ceiling that seals you in. The tunnel bends sharply, turning vertical. You tilt upward, light cutting through a narrow shaft. The walls shimmer wet, narrowing like a throat. You follow, Garrett behind. Each kick a battle against exhaustion. The water here tastes different. You can feel it, even through the regulator, saltier, metallic, tinged with something chemical. You don't want to know what. Halfway up, your mask fogs. Not unusual, but when you wipe it, the fog doesn't clear. It smears thick like oil. For one horrible moment, you think it's on the inside of the mask. Then you realize it's the water itself. Something viscous drifts here, faintly luminous. Threads of slime that tangle around your arms, cling to your suit, smear across your visor. You swat at it, kick harder, heart rate spiking. The water thickens as though resisting you, slowing every movement. Garrett signals frantically back, back, but you're already too far. The shaft narrows, pressing in, until the slime is all around you. It stretches like cobwebs, strands drifting in currents you can't see. You push through, gagging against the regulator. The slime clings to your gloves, sticking between your fingers. You tear free, chest burning, vision swimming, and then open space. You break into another chamber, larger this time, ceiling lost in darkness. You hover there, panting, regulator rasping. Garrett bursts out behind you, shaking strands of slime from his mask. His eyes are wild, his breath ragged. Together, you drift into the middle of the cavern, trying to recover. The silence presses again, broken only by your breathing. And then you hear it. Not rumble this time, not collapse, something else, a faint clicking. It echoes through the chamber, sharp and irregular, like stone tapping against stone, or teeth. Your stomach knots. You glance at Garrett, and his eyes mirror yours. He hears it too. The clicking grows louder, closer. Your mask light flickers, sputters again, and for an instant, you see them, azure shimmers darting just beyond the beam. Not dozens now, hundreds, swarming, circling, waiting. The swarm parts for something larger, something slower, and you realize the fish weren't fleeing you. You've always told yourself that water is honest. It flows where it must, seeps into every weakness, reveals every crack. But down here, water lies. It pretends upward exists. It teases you with bubbles that slide along ceilings and vanish into stone. It whispers of escape, but never delivers. Garrett's hand clamps your arm, his grip trembling but firm. His signal, stay calm, don't bolt. The swarm still shimmers at the edges of your beam, eyeless fish circling like sparks around a flame. They dart and snap, their beaks clacking against each other in frantic rhythm, like castanets in the dark. But they're not circling you, they're orbiting something else. The clicking sound continues, irregular, uneven, wrong. It echoes through your chest more than your ears. Garrett shifts his light toward the far wall, but the beam fades into silt and shadow. Whatever makes that noise is out there, patient, pacing just beyond sight. Your body wants to surge upward, to kick, until you break surface, any surface. But there is no surface. The chamber's ceiling is solid rock, stretching flat and cruel overhead. You swim closer, pressing your palm to it. Smooth, cold, unyielding. You tap against it with your chisel. The sound thuds dully, muffled. No echo, no hollow chamber above. Just more stone. Garrett drifts beside you, shaking his head. His eyes say what you won't. We are trapped. Your breaths come quicker, bubbles rushing too fast. You force yourself to slow down, count in your head, steady the rhythm. Every extra gasp costs minutes, maybe seconds. You can't afford waste. The fish suddenly surge upward, slamming themselves against the ceiling. Their beaks click and scrape, tiny impacts raining like hail. Dozens of them hammering at the rock. You jolt back, startled, but Garrett grabs your wrist before you drift too far. Then, just as quickly, the swarm scatters. They vanish into cracks along the chamber walls, their bodies slipping through fissures too small for you. And the clicking stops. Silence again. Heavy. Expectant. You remember a fringe story you once read. A diver in the 1950s claimed he'd found a sealed cave in the Yucatan where fish swarmed upward into solid ceiling, vanishing as if the stone itself swallowed them. Scientists dismissed it. Historians still debate whether he hallucinated from nitrogen narcosis. But down here, the story doesn't feel like a myth. It feels like a warning. Garrett's slate glows faintly in your light. We follow current. Always current. He taps it twice, then stuffs it back into his pouch. He's right. You can't trust sight anymore. The water will guide you. It has to. You both drift toward the left wall, feeling along the stone until you sense it. A faint pull, barely more than a suggestion. It brushes against your fingers, a subtle current tugging sideways. Relief sparks in your chest. Movement means passage. Passage means chance. The tunnel it leads into is narrow, jagged, the kind that forces you to exhale just to squeeze through. Your chest compresses, ribs scraping against stone. Garrett goes first, his fins barely clearing the walls. You follow, every inch an act of trust. The stone presses closer, closer. Your mask grinds against the ceiling, regulator scraping rock. For a moment, you can't move at all, wedged tight. Panic floods in, hot and fast. You thrash, wasting precious air, until Garrett's hand reaches back, gripping yours. He tugs once, firm. Exhale. You force it out, lungs collapsing, chest shrinking just enough. You slide forward, scraping free into open space. The new chamber is smaller, but taller. Your mask light cuts upward, revealing jagged formations hanging like teeth, stalactites sharpened by centuries, dripping slow trails of mineral-rich water. Each drip echoes faintly, plinking against the surface you can't see. You glance down, expecting to find a floor. Instead, only blackness, a shaft plunging deeper. The water below swallows your light whole. Garrett gestures upward, hopeful. The ceiling curves here, less smooth, dotted with cracks. You both push toward it, scanning for air. But the ceiling is false again. Solid, impenetrable. You hammer against it with your chisel, desperate. But the stone only flakes, dust sinking into the water. Garrett stops you with a sharp shake of his head. Wasting energy, wasting air. Your chest tightens. You can feel the regulator struggling now. Every breath a little less satisfying, like sipping through a clogged straw. Your body knows before your mind accepts it. You're running out. Nora's face flashes in your memory, her sharp eyes and steady hands. You don't know where she is now, if she's alive, if she found a way out. For all you know, she's already sealed under tons of rock, another ghost in the earth. You shiver, not from cold this time, but from something worse. The creeping realization that this cavern isn't just indifferent, it's deliberate. The paths don't lead out. They lead deeper. Something brushes past your fin. Not fish. Bigger, heavy enough to stir the water, subtle enough to stay unseen. You whip your light downward, but the shaft swallows it whole. Garrett sees it too. His eyes widen, pupils dilated in the glow. His hand signal is sharp, urgent. Move now. You kick upward, not because there's escape there, but because any direction away from that unseen brush is better than staying still. Garrett follows, both of you pressed tight against the ceiling. As though flattening yourselves could make you invisible, the water shifts again. A wave, subtle but deliberate, rolls through the chamber. And in that moment, you understand something that sinks colder than the water itself. You are not searching for an exit anymore. You are being herded. The herding doesn't stop. Every flick of current nudges you, not violently, but insistently, like a shepherd guiding stray animals. Each time you resist, hovering, clinging to the wall, the water stirs again, brushing harder, whispering in liquid insistence, "Not that way." Garrett's jaw is tight behind his regulator, but he doesn't fight it either. His light sweeps the ceiling, the cracks, every angle for escape. Nothing. Only the current, pointing deeper, always deeper. You've heard stories of labyrinth caves, how divers become convinced the water itself wants them lost. Some chalk it up to narcosis, others to paranoia. Historians still debate whether the death of Benjamin Frinkle, the diver who vanished in France's Gaule de la Tannerie system, was from faulty gear, or if he followed phantom currents into the rock. Down here, those debates don't feel academic. They feel like prophecy. The shaft drops again. You descend because you must. Bubbles fizzling upward only to be smashed flat against the ceiling. Your light flickers along the walls, marks etched into stone. Not human scratches. Long grooves, parallel, like something clawed its way through over centuries. Nora's absence pounds in your mind. Was she funneled the same way? Was she the first offering, or did she find another path? You want to believe she found light, but belief feels expensive down here. Then the sound returns. Not the rumble of collapse, not the clicks of the fish. Something wetter, more deliberate. A scrape, you freeze. Garrett does too. The scrape echoes along the walls, a dragging sound, bone against stone. It's close, too close. Your lights swing downward, and for an instant you see it. At first its only shape arms, impossibly long, bent wrong, joints folding like spider legs. Pale flesh, stretched thin, rubbery. Fingers tipped with points that dig into stone as it crawls. Not swimming, crawling. It moves fast, far too fast for something so large. The head swivels as it pulls itself forward, and that's when the light catches its face. Not really a face, just sockets sunk deep, empty. And below them, a mouth that doesn't belong underwater, teeth needle-thin, clacking together as if grinding down bone. It doesn't flinch from your lights. It doesn't retreat. It lunges. You kick upward violently, lungs seizing, heart exploding against your ribs. Garrett shoves you ahead, regulator bubbles roaring as he exhales hard. His light swings wildly, strobing across the chamber as the creature's limbs scrape closer. The fish scatter, hundreds bursting away like sparks from a flame. They weren't circling you. They were avoiding this. You thrash through the water, muscles screaming. Your foot slams against rock, pain flaring, but you don't stop. Garrett's hand clamps your tether, dragging you faster, forcing you to move. You glance back once and wish you hadn't. The creature's limbs stretch through the water, clawing forward with sickening ease. Its body folds unnaturally, compressing through a tunnel barely wide enough for your suits. Its teeth chatter, the sound transmitting through stone and water until it rattles in your skull. Garrett flashes a signal you've never seen before, frantic, wild. His eyes scream louder than any gesture. Go. I'll hold it. You shake your head violently, bubbles streaming, but his grip tightens, shoving you toward the shaft. His regulator hisses harder, exhale ragged. He's not asking, he's commanding. The shaft narrows. You force yourself through, scraping your arms, tearing at your suit. The rock grinds against your mask, threatening to dislodge it. You twist, exhale, collapse your lungs, squeeze through. Behind you, Garrett isn't following. You flash your light back, desperate. The beam catches his face, just for a second. His eyes are wide, pupils blown, mouth clamped around the regulator. One arm still grips the chisel, the other is gone, ripped away in a spray of bubbles and dark cloud. The creature coils around him, its limbs flexing with hideous strength. You see his chest jerk once, a scream swallowed by the regulator. Then his light goes out. The shaft shakes with the vibrations of his struggle. The stone hums with every scrape of those claws. And you, shoved forward by his sacrifice, can only kick, teeth clamped against the regulator, tears mixing with the salt water in your mask. You don't look back again. The shaft spits you into another tunnel, narrower, twisting. You slam into walls, shoulder bruising, knee cracking. Every turn feels wrong, a trap, a dead end. But panic is steering now, not thought. You thrash, you claw, you flee. The current grabs you again, dragging you deeper. You don't resist. Resistance feels like suicide. For long minutes or hours, you can't tell you let it pull you. Tears blurring your vision, body aching. The water swirls, bends, guides. You're not swimming anymore. You're being delivered. When the tunnel finally widens, you collapse into it, trembling, chest heaving. You find another pocket of air, just large enough for your head. You rip out the regulator, gasping, coughing until your ribs ache. The cavern is silent again. Too silent. And in that silence, one truth pounds louder than your heartbeat. You're not escaping. You're being hunted. You don't swim anymore. You run. Every kick is frantic, sloppy, your body jerking through the tunnels like prey in a snare. You don't care if you bruise against rock. Don't care if your regulator rattles in your mouth. Don't care if you scrape your arms raw. You just move. The maze sprawls around you, branching and curling, every tunnel identical, black throats yawning open, promising exit, but delivering only more stone. You pick at random. Left, right, downward, upward. The choices blur until you can't tell if you're circling back or plunging deeper. The walls feel closer now. Too close. Every surface threatens to collapse against you, to seal and crush you in silence. You imagine the creature behind you, crawling effortlessly where you thrash, its limbs dragging along rock, teeth clicking like castanets. You don't look back. You don't dare. Your mask light flickers with each impact, stuttering weak beams. Every flicker makes your stomach clench. The light is your lifeline. When it dies, you'll be nothing but breath and panic in infinite dark. You slam into a chamber and nearly sob with relief. It's small, but tall enough for you to hover upright. You fumble for your slate, scrawl half-legible notes. Air low. Time lost. Alone. The writing looks like someone else's hand, shaky, frantic. You stuff it back, shove the regulator deeper between your teeth, and push on. The tunnels shift, unpredictably. One moment, they're wide enough to spin in the next. They narrow so tight you have to exhale and squeeze, your ribs scraping stone. At times you wonder if the cave itself is shifting, rearranging to trap you, and the sound follows. Always scrapes, dull thuds, a low vibration you feel more than hear. Sometimes faint, distant, almost a memory. Sometimes close enough that the water around you stirs, brushing your skin like fingers. You remember a story you once heard about the catacombs of Paris, how explorers marked arrows on the walls, only to find them reversed later, pointing deeper instead of back. Some swore the tunnels rearranged themselves. Others whispered about something moving the markers after the explorers passed. Historians still debate whether those tailies were embellishment or a genuine unsolved mystery. But here, in these tunnels, the idea no longer feels absurd. You can almost feel the maze listening, closing, guiding you towards something you don't want to meet. You shove the thought down and follow instinct. Another chamber. This one with a pocket of air at the top. You breach, yank out your regulator, and suck in stale oxygen. It burns your throat, dry and sweet like mold. You cough, spit, force yourself to swallow it anyway. It's all you have. The chamber smells wrong, metallic, tangy. You wipe your mask, raise your light, and almost drop it. Bones. Not human. At least, not entirely. Scattered fragments litter the chamber floor. Some long, some small. Some look like fish spines, others like limbs. One fragment, thick and pale, is unmistakably a femur. Human. You gag, bile rising, regulator clutched in shaking hands. This place isn't just a maze. It's a larder. Something shifts behind you. A ripple in the water. You spin, light flaring nothing. Just silt stirring slowly, curling in unnatural spirals. You don't wait. You plunge back under, regulator hissing, chest heaving. The maze tightens again, forcing you into crooked shafts. Your hand scrapes against quartz veins, sharp enough to slice your glove. Blood leaks into the water. You curse silently, kicking harder. That's when you hear it. Not just scrapes this time. Not just vibration. A hiss, wet, dragging, like air being forced through a throat not built for breathing. It echoes down the tunnel, reverberating in your bones. You kick faster, ignoring the pain in your foot, ignoring the protest in your lungs. You break into another chamber. This one is wide, the floor sloping downward into black. Your light catches glitter crystals, thousands of them, coating the walls. For a second, it's dazzling, like standing inside a cathedral of glass. Then the crystals move. No, not crystals. Eyes. They blink, dozens at once, reflecting your beam back in nightmare shimmer. Not human eyes. Not even animal. Just glossy orbs, blank and unfeeling. Staring without recognition, your chest seizes. You kick backward instinctively, slamming into the wall. The eyes blink again, then vanish as the bodies attached to them shift into darkness. You realize with horror that the fish weren't the only things evolving here. The chamber trembles. A scrape echoes, louder this time. Closer. Garrett's face flashes in your memory, wide-eyed, mouth screaming behind the regulator as those arms pulled him under. You bite down so hard on your own regulator it hurts, as though clenching could keep your lungs from being ripped away too. The tunnel ahead splits in 3. You don't think. You choose the middle and dive, lungs burning, bubbles exploding upward against stone. You thrash through jagged bends, regulator rattling, light dimming. Behind you, the sound surges again. Not chasing, not following, hurting. The truth hits you with crushing clarity. This maze isn't random. It isn't indifferent. It's a trap designed to feed. And you're not lost. You're exactly where it wants you. Air is supposed to mean safety, surface, relief, but down here, air lies too. The first pocket you find is small, barely enough for your head and shoulders. You breach, regulator clenched in your hand, and inhale. It's foul, thick, damp, sugary sweet, tinged with iron. Each breath feels wrong, like you're inhaling decay itself. You cough so hard your ribs ache, eyes watering as the taste clings to the back of your throat. But your body takes it anyway, because you have no choice. Garrett's absence presses against you like a weight, heavier than your tank. Every time your light flickers on wet stone, you half expect to see his face staring back, pupils blown, mouth open. Instead, there's only silence, broken by the drip of condensation, the whisper of water shifting around rock. You jam the regulator back in, descend again. The tunnels narrow and twist, squeezing you like a throat. Every scrape of your suit against stone echoes back, louder than it should be, like something amplifies the sound to remind you how small you are. The current pulls sideways. You follow, because what else is there? Another pocket, larger this time, big enough to half climb out of the water. You heave yourself up, arms trembling, tank clanking against rock. The floor is slick, coated with something slimy. Your glove comes away sticky. strands of translucent goo stretching between your fingers. You yank your hand back, bile rising. The cavern reeks worse than the last, like fruit left to rot in a sealed jar. You rip off your mask, gag, and breathe through your mouth, but it doesn't help. The sweetness is everywhere. Your light catches movement. You whip it around, heart lurching. Not the creature, not this time. Bones, they're piled in the corner, slick and pale. Fish skeletons, mostly tangled together. But there are larger shapes too, spines that don't belong to fish, fragments that look human. A foot, half a jaw, all gnawed clean. You freeze, breath shallow, and then you hear it, a wet, deliberate sound. Chewing. It's faint, muffled, but unmistakable, the rhythm of teeth grinding through marrow, lips smacking around gristle. Your blood goes cold. You press yourself flat against the wall, tank scraping rock, praying the noise isn't coming from inside this pocket. The sound echoes strangely, bouncing in from one of the tunnels. For long minutes, you don't move. You barely breathe. The chewing continues, steady, methodical, like someone or something, savoring every bite. Finally, silence. It's worse than the chewing. You fumble the regulator back into your mouth, dive again. The water feels safer than the air now. At least it muffles the sounds. At least it hides you. You push forward, guided by the current. The tunnels stretch endlessly, each one identical, each one pressing closer. Your arms ache. Your foot throbs with every kick. Your lungs scream against the regulator. But stopping feels impossible. Stopping feels like offering yourself up. At one bend, your light glances off something metallic wedged in the wall. You pause, heart hammering. It's a diving knife. Rusted, corroded, the handle snapped clean. A relic of someone else who came before you. Someone who never left. The sight guts you. You're not the first down here. Not even close. The current tugs again, urging you onward. You obey, every kick heavy, every breath too shallow. Another pocket appears, glimmering faintly above. You surface, rip off the regulator, and gasp, then recoil instantly. The air here is worse. Acrid, sulfurous. It burns your throat, your lungs, your eyes. You cough violently, bile spilling into the water. It takes everything in you not to choke. Your mask light flickers, casting jittering shadows, and in those shadows, you see markings on the wall. Not natural grooves, scratches, carved deliberately, lines, circles, symbols you don't recognize. They spiral outward like sigils, etched deep into the stone. Some shimmer faintly, coated with that same translucent slime. You trace one with your gloved finger, shivering as the groove seems warmer than the stone around it. Someone or something marked this place. Not recently, long ago. Your brain latches onto a memory. An obscure note you once read about Mesopotamian underworld maps. Carvings said to mark paths into subterranean realms of the dead. Historians still debate whether those were religious metaphors or real places people feared to enter. But staring at these marks, You wonder if you've stumbled into the same idea, etched here in a language lost to history. The thought chills you deeper than the water ever could. You can't stay. The air is poison. The symbols are worse. You shove the regulator back in, descend, and flee. The tunnels tighten again, squeezing you until your mask scrapes stone. You exhale, ribs collapsing, forcing yourself through. Every movement feels like a gamble, every breath a risk. Your light flickers, stutters, dies. For a moment, you're blind. Total black. No up, no down, no sense of distance. Panic surges, clawing at your chest. You fumble, slap the light, twist the housing. It sputters back to life, faint but steady. Relief floods you, until you realize you're not alone. The beam catches movement just ahead, long arms, jointed wrong, stretching across the tunnel. Fingers flexing, scraping stone. The creature pauses, as though it knows you see it now. Its limbs curl back, vanishing into shadow. And then the current shifts again, stronger, pulling you forward. You realize with sinking horror that the pockets of air, the false ceilings, the poisonous chambers, they weren't accidents. They were waiting rooms, holding pens, places to slow you down, weaken you, soften you. You're not just lost in this maze. You're being prepared. The tunnels breathe. Not literally, not with lungs, but with rhythm. Water surges and ebbs in slow pulses, like inhalations. Each wave brushes your face, strokes your arms, nudges your fins. It feels less like you're swimming, and more like you're caught inside a colossal chest cavity, forced to match its tempo. You fight the urge to bolt, because that rhythm isn't the worst thing. The worst thing is the sound layered over it. Chewing. It starts faint again, just as it did in the air pocket before, wet, deliberate, steady. But now it's closer, louder, no longer a background murmur, but a living presence. Teeth grinding, flesh tearing. You freeze in mid-water, body trembling, regulator rattling with shallow breaths. The noise echoes through the tunnels, bouncing in ways that make direction impossible. You can't tell if it's ahead, behind, above. The walls carry it everywhere, as though the rock itself is chewing. Your mind claws at explanations. Maybe it's the fish snapping their beaks. Maybe it's water grinding stone. But your gut knows better. This isn't mechanical. This isn't natural. This is feeding. Your stomach knots as a crack echoes through the chamber like a bone breaking. Sharp, wet, final. Something splashes faintly in the water above. Not bubbles, droplets, like blood mingling with current. You want to scream. Instead, you clamp your jaw tighter on the regulator, tasting rubber and metal. The chewing pauses. Silence pools. And then a new sound, sucking. Wet, greedy, obscene, like marrow being slurped out of a hollow. You remember reading about the Donner Party, how starving settlers in 1847 turned to cannibalism. One survivor wrote that the sound of marrow being sucked from bones haunted him until his death. Historians still debate whether he exaggerated, but the echo of that horror fills your ears now. In this place where history doesn't matter. Because here, you know it's no exaggeration. You press yourself against the tunnel wall, eyes squeezed shut, body trembling, as if stillness can make you invisible. The sucking stops, silence, and then movement, heavy, wet, something dragging itself along stone. The scrape is slow, deliberate, like claws testing their grip. It gets louder, closer, until you can feel vibrations shivering through the rock against your chest. You force yourself to breathe shallow, silent breaths. Your regulator hisses faintly, too loud. Every bubble feels like a scream. The sound passes, crawling, dragging, retreating into another tunnel. You don't dare move until it fades, swallowed by distance. Only then do you peel yourself from the wall, limbs stiff, chest aching. You drift forward, regulator still clenched tight, trying to match the rhythm of the water's pulse. The tunnel opens into another chamber, smaller this time, ceiling low. Your mask light cuts across the floor, and your gut seizes. Bones. Again. But these are fresh, not dry, not bleached. Flesh still clings in ragged strips, a ribcage half chewed, vertebrae cracked open, limbs gnawed to splinters. Human. No mistaking it this time. The mask light shimmers over a diving harness, tangled in the mess. Straps shredded, tank dented and split. Your breath comes fast, bubbles roaring from your mask. You slam a hand over the regulator, force yourself still, but your body won't obey. Panic surges anyway, violent, unstoppable. You realize the chewing you heard wasn't just echo. It was here, in this room, minutes ago. And maybe not minutes, maybe seconds. The water stirs faintly, currents shifting. You swing your light toward the far wall and see the smear, blood clouding in lazy tendrils, drifting toward you. You jerk back instinctively, but the movement only stirs the cloud, mixing it with your bubbles. The smell seeps into your mask, copper and salt, so thick you gag. Then the sound returns. Closer, chewing, sucking, low, guttural grunts of satisfaction. You thrash toward the nearest tunnel, every nerve screaming. The walls close in fast, scraping your shoulders, bruising your ribs. Your mask fogs with heat, your vision narrowing. Behind you, the sounds grow louder. Something wet splashes into the water, sending a current chasing after you. The drag of limbs, the grind of teeth. You push harder, lungs burning, regulator hissing like fire. The tunnel twists, turns, squeezes. You slam into the wall, bruise your thigh, tear your glove on sharp crystal. Blood oozes. The current behind you quickens, shoving you forward. For a moment, you think it's chasing. But no, it's guiding again. Always guiding. You don't know which is worse, being pursued or being delivered. Another chamber. Another pocket of air. You burst upward, tearing the regulator out, gasping in the stale sweetness. It scalds your lungs, makes your head spin, but you breathe anyway. You can't stop. The silence here is almost worse than the chewing. Too still, too empty, then something drips. A thick, wet plop hitting the water beside you. You tilt your mask light upward and freeze. Strips of flesh hang from the ceiling, plastered against the stone like ribbons. They sway gently in the air pocket, dripping steadily into the water. Some are pale, almost translucent. Others are mottled with bruised purple. They quiver as if freshly torn. The light catches one piece still twitching, nerves firing after death. Your chest convulses. You choke on bile, nearly spit out the regulator. You slap it back in, gagging as panic rips through your stomach. This pocket isn't refuge, it's pantry, and you're standing inside it. You can't stay in the pantry. Every breath tastes like meat now, sweet and coppery. The air pocket reeks of rot and iron, and you swear you can feel it coating your tongue. You shove the regulator back into your mouth, desperate for the chemical bite of tank oxygen, and plunge beneath the surface. The water welcomes you with silence. For a moment, it feels like escape, until you remember silence means it's listening. The tunnels tighten again, bending upward this time. Your body follows without thinking. Up is good. Up means surface. Even though every time you've thought that, stone has mocked you with its blank ceiling. Still, you let yourself hope, because hope is oxygen, and oxygen is running out. Your mask light trembles with each kick. Your muscles burn, lungs ache, throat raw from shallow gasps. The regulator wheezes now, less hiss, more rasp. Your tank is nearly empty. The shaft bends sharper, steeper. You claw upward, scraping knuckles, tearing wetsuit fabric, ignoring the sting of cuts. Your heart thrashes, every beat an alarm. Then there, a glow, not natural light, not your beam, something pale above, filtered through water. A shimmer of possibility. Relief surges. You kick harder, chest convulsing with ragged breaths. You breach into a pocket, yank out the regulator, and gasp. The air is different here. Not sweet, not sulfur, metallic. It tastes like pennies dissolved in water. Cold, stale, but less rotten than before. It sears your lungs, but in a cleaner way, if clean can mean sharp and unnatural. You cough, mask light sweeping across the ceiling, and your heart stops. It isn't stone. It's smooth, flat, metallic. You reach up, press your glove against it. The surface is slick, unnaturally cold, humming faintly with vibrations. You rap it with your knuckle. The sound is hollow, echoing. Something built this. Your brain claws at explanations. Old mining shafts, maybe. Abandoned structures. But you know better. This isn't rusted iron or collapsed timber. It feels deliberate, solid, a seal. You pound harder, fist slamming, regulator clanking against your chest. The sound reverberates through the chamber, dull but deep, as though carried farther than it should be. Then something answers. A scrape from below. Slow, steady, the creature knows where you are. Panic detonates. You hammer the ceiling harder, regulator slipping from your mouth. Air bursts out, bubbles streaming upward, smacking against the metal and sliding sideways like they're trapped. You shove the regulator back in. coughing violently, chest spasming. The scrape grows louder, closer. You can feel it through the stone walls, through the water itself. Limbs dragging, claws raking, you slam both fists into the ceiling, knuckles bruising, bones aching. The metal shudders faintly under your blows, as though it isn't as thick as it looks. You scream into your regulator, bubbles exploding upward in a furious stream. Something brushes your leg, fingers curling around your ankle. You kick, thrash, tear-free, lungs seizing. Pain explodes through your thigh as claws rake your wetsuit, slicing flesh. Blood clouds instantly, drifting like ink. You pound harder, screaming against the regulator, body convulsing with terror. The ceiling groans under your fists. A seam splits an inch, no more, but it's enough. Light leaks through. Dim, artificial, sterile. Hands appear, human hands. They shove the slab aside, metal scraping against stone. You surge upward, muscles burning, blood leaking from your thigh. Something yanks from below, dragging you down, claws biting deep into your calf. You shriek into the regulator, bubbles bursting. The hands above reach down, grip your shoulders, haul with desperate strength. The creature's claws tear away, ripping fabric and skin. You surge upward, breach the surface, and collapse onto cold flooring. Air floods you. Sharp, chemical, too clean, too sharp, but it's air. You tear the regulator out, scream until your throat cracks. Hands grip you, drag you onto solid ground. Your vision blurs, faces above you, faceless in the light. 4 figures in dark gear, their expressions unreadable. They slam the metal cover back into place, sealing the chamber below. The scrape stops instantly. The silence is worse. You lie trembling on the floor, gasping, coughing blood. Your thigh burns, your calf throbs. Your entire body convulses in shock. The figures say nothing. Not comfort, not explanation, just silence. You force your head up. You want to ask, demand answers, scream at them for dragging you down here, for feeding you to that thing. But your voice breaks into sobs. Only screams leave your throat. The hands hold you down until the screams fade. And in that silence, you realize the most horrifying thing of all. The metal ceiling wasn't keeping you out. It was keeping it in. Light blinds you. Not daylight, at least not at first. Fluorescent strips hum above, sterile and clinical, buzzing like angry insects. The air burns your lungs, clean to the point of suffocation, scrubbed free of the damp rot below. You lie sprawled on a concrete floor, gasping, mask and regulator torn away. Figures loom around you. 4, maybe 5, all dressed alike in black waterproof gear, helmets shadowing their faces. They don't speak. They don't offer water or warmth. They just watch. You try to sit up. Pain detonates in your leg where the claws raked you. Blood seeps through torn neoprene, pooling dark on the concrete. You clutch at it instinctively, but the nearest figure pushes your hand aside. A cold spray hisses over the wound, antiseptic maybe. It burns worse than the claws. Then bandages. Tight, efficient, No hesitation, no kindness. Still silence. You rasp out words broken hoarse. Garrett, Nora, did you? No answer. You grab one figure by the sleeve, desperate, nails digging through the slick fabric. He shakes you off like you're a stray dog. Your chest heaves, eyes filling with water. You choke it back, tears, blood, panic, all mixing into one raw tremor. One of them finally crouches beside you, not to comfort, to flash a clipboard. Paper clipped neatly, words stamped across in bold. A non-disclosure agreement. Even through your haze, you understand. They don't care about Garrett, or Nora, or you. They care about silence. You laugh, a ragged sound that tears your throat. It echoes harshly against the concrete walls. You're half drowned, half dead, bones trembling, and they're handing you paperwork. The man taps the line where you're supposed to sign. His gloved finger leaves a wet smear. You shake your head violently. No, you don't know what's. The butt of a rifle slams against the floor beside your ear. The sound ricochets through your skull. The meaning is clear enough. Hands force a pen into your grip. Your fingers twitch, broken from fatigue. You scrawl something that might be your name, might be a mess of lines. Doesn't matter. They don't care if you signed or scribbled. They only care that the paper is marked. One by one, the figures turn away. Two haul you up under your arms, dragging you toward a stairwell. Your leg screams, your ribs throb, your head lolls. You catch glimpses as you're pulled. Metal walls, reinforced doors, wires coiled across the ceiling. This isn't a rescue station. It's a bunker. The stairwell spirals upward, each step pounding your body. You fight to lift your head. A faint glow above grows stronger, warmer, less sterile. And then, suddenly, daylight, blazing, unbearable daylight. You collapse into it, eyes seared, skin prickling. Wind brushes your face for the first time in forever. The smell of trees, soil, life, all of it, floods your senses at once. You sob, gulping air like you've never known it before. The figures drag you across grass, away from the bunker's hidden entrance. You twist your head, desperate to see it, but it's already closing, a slab of metal, camouflaged in earth and stone, sealing itself into the hillside, as though it never existed. You're left lying in the open field, grass scratching your face, sunlight soaking into your damp skin. Birds chirp. The sound is so absurd, so ordinary, that you laugh again, ragged, broken, nearly hysterical. The figures stand around you a moment longer. Then, one by one, they leave. No words, no explanations, no goodbyes, just silence. You try to call after them, but your voice cracks into nothing. Your throat is raw, shredded from screaming underwater. You collapse back into the grass, staring up at the wide, open sky. For a long time, you lie there, half waiting for claws to seize your ankle again, to drag you back. But nothing comes. The sun bakes you. The wind hums. The world above remains oblivious. Finally, hours later, maybe longer, you hear an engine, tires crunching on gravel. Voices calling. Real voices, human, curious, concerned, villagers maybe, or hikers. They find you sprawled, half-conscious, burned and bandaged, blood crusted on your leg. You can barely form words, but they don't press. They bundle you into a truck, wrap you in blankets, press water to your lips. They don't ask about Garrett, or Nora, or the thing beneath. They assume you're just another unlucky diver who pushed too far, and you don't correct them, because the contract in your pocket weighs heavier than any tank. At the hospital, questions multiply. How long you were down there, what happened to your partners, how you got the wounds. You mumble fragments, collapsed tunnel, equipment failure, panic. You don't remember, they nod. They don't press. But at night, when you close your eyes, you hear it again. The scraping, the chewing, the faint hiss of breath that isn't meant for water. And the worst sound of all, the metal ceiling groaning shut. You know it's still down there. And worse, you know the ones who pulled you out didn't intend to save you. You were never rescued. You were released. Years pass. The wound in your leg knits into a pale scar, but it burns on stormy nights, like the claws are still in there. You've told no one the truth. Not doctors, not family, not the divers who ask, out of professional curiosity, how you made it back when your partners didn't. You repeat the same story every time. Collapse, panic, faulty gear. Their faces soften with pity, then change the subject. No one presses. It should comfort you. It doesn't, because the silence they accept is the silence they want. The silence the men in black gear forced into your hands. The silence of a contract that still sits in the back of your closet, crumpled, water-stained, its ink blurred, but binding all the same. You never saw Nora again. You don't know if she drowned quickly, or if the maze dragged her deeper, made her part of the pantry. Sometimes you imagine she escaped, found a fissure you missed, slipped out into daylight, and fled. Other times you hear her screams in your dreams, muffled underwater, cut short by teeth. Garrett comes to you more often. The way his hand shoved you upward, forcing you to live. The way his light winked out as the claws coiled around him. You wake some nights with the imprint of his grip still burning on your arm. But it's not memory that keeps you awake. It's certainty. You know the thing is still down there. Sometimes you drive back to the valley. You tell yourself it's morbid curiosity, unfinished business. Some twisted sense of honoring Garrett and Nora. But the truth is worse. You go because you can feel it calling. The site looks different now. Fences rise high, topped with wire, signs warn of unstable ground, toxic contamination, private property. Guards linger in trucks at the gates. They don't wear insignias. You don't ask who they work for. You already know. At night, lights glow faintly beyond the fence. You hear machinery, humming low and steady, like air pumps, like engines built to keep something alive. You sit in your car, windows down, engine off, and listen. The night insects sing, the valley wind shifts, and beneath it all faint, almost too faint to believe, you hear scraping. Sometimes it's steady. Sometimes it's faint and irregular, like claws testing the ceiling. But always, it's there, and you wonder if the men with the clipboards ever truly sealed it, or if they only manage it, feeding it, studying it, letting it grow. You don't tell anyone, but you talk to us. Here now, because you can't keep it all inside forever. Maybe you think speaking will free you. Maybe you think dragging us into your memory will cut the weight loose. But even as you say it aloud, even as the words leave your mouth, you know the truth. You aren't just a survivor. You're bait. That's why they let you crawl out. That's why they dragged you into daylight instead of pushing you back under. You're their warning flare, their signal to the world. Every time you open your mouth, every time you whisper about the valley, every time you relive Garrett's scream or Nora's silence, you're doing their work for them. You're telling the story. You're spreading the fear, because fear is the first step to worship. And what lives under that valley wants worship. Your scar aches. Your lungs seize when you think of it too long. You know that if you close your eyes hard enough, if you breathe deep enough, you'll smell it again, that copper-sweet rot, that taste of marrow in stale air. You hate yourself for still dreaming of water, for hearing the call of the tunnels, not as warning, but as invitation. One day, you'll go back. You don't know when or why or how you'll get past the fences, but you feel it, inevitable as tide. And when you do, you won't come back. That was always the price of survival. The story slows now. You breathe slower. Your heartbeat softens, loosens its grip. The terror unspools, thread by thread, until only echoes remain. The valley fades. The tunnels dissolve. The claws and teeth slip into shadow, swallowed whole by the dark that bore them. You're safe. That's what you tell yourself. That's what I whisper to you now. The air in your room is clean, warm. The hum you hear is just your fan, steady and harmless. The faint creak of your house is only wood shifting, only wind pressing against glass. You're safe. And yet, you know the way shadows sometimes look thicker in the corner, as if something pools there. You know the way silence sometimes stretches too long between sounds, as though waiting for you to notice. You know the way dreams sometimes feel like memories, blurred, but sharp enough to scar. The maze waits in all those things, not under your floorboards, not in your basement, but in the folds of your mind, the places you can't light. Still, you'll sleep, you'll drift, because that's what we do, even when we shouldn't. You'll let go, sink, surrender, and if, in the middle of the night, you wake to the faint scrape of something dragging along stone, don't panic. It's only your imagination. It has to be. Close your eyes again. Let your breathing slow. The story's over now. You're safe. Aren't you? Sweet dreams. Aren't you? Sweet dreams.